Ladies and gentlemen, the Midwest Slice of Life presents MAM-O GRAM, the Marty After Midnight program. And now, here's your host, Marty! Hello and welcome to MAM-O GRAM, the Marty After Midnight program. Appreciate you tuning in. Second week that we're doing it. Again, we're going to be having these on Monday through Friday. And yeah, I got a little ouchie here on my forehead. Went up to go to the bathroom last night in the dark, tripped, fell right into the door. So we'll see how long that's going to be there. It looks worse than it is. So that's a little annoyance, but what are you going to do? Last Friday, I told the story of how we first heard Revolver by the Beatles with Johnny Sag and his sisters who really didn't like the direction the Beatles were going in. Well, if they didn't like that, less than a year later, in February of 1967, they put out the single Strawberry Fields Forever and Penny Lane. And by now they had grown mustaches. I think George had a beard. I'll put up a picture of them. And kids were kind of had mixed signals about the whole thing. Their music was changing. They were growing, as musicians. Strawberry Fields especially. I read later that they sped John's voice up. And the music was the start of the psychedelic era. And some people loved it. Some people hated it, that they weren't the cute little mop tops anymore. Then in the end of May of 1967, they released Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And again, people were kind of mixed. Most people liked it, but there were people that were pissed that they weren't saying the same cute mop tops. Like I say, now they had mustaches. I'll put up a picture. And the album cover was outrageous. It had this collage. I'll put the album cover up too. The lyrics were on the back of the album. And I remember looking at it at the record store with my brother Jim. There was a record store in a mall back when we lived in Louisville, Kentucky. And I remember we were seeing it in there. We were just looking at it. They were playing little bits of it on the radio. We couldn't wait to hear it. And we were going on vacation in June, right after it came out. To Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Kind of a big deal. We had never been to Florida. My dad drove there. It was like a 2-day trip there and back. But while we were on vacation, it was Jim's birthday. And like I said, we always on our birthday or Christmas, we'd get an album, because we could never afford an album. We bought singles. Singles were like 79 cents. And back then, albums were only like $3.99, $4.99, I think. But we didn't have that kind of money as kids. So he asked for Sgt. Pepper for his birthday, and we celebrated it on vacation in the hotel room. I remember they had like a little stack of presents and stuff. Then we were going to go out to eat after he opened his presents. But there wasn't an album in this stack of presents. You pretty much can tell an album. It's square. And I remember Jim kind of looking at him and looking at me like, what the fuck is going on here? He opens them up and, I can't remember. I do remember him looking kind of disappointed. And then my mom said, it's funny my mom to do this. My mom reached out, she said, we got one more for you. And she reached under the bed. It was an album wrapped up. So Jim tore it open, and this was it, Sgt. Pepper. Again, I'll put it up on screen. I hate holding stuff like this, but we couldn't believe it. So we were looking at the cover, and it had the lyrics on the back of it. We were reading the lyrics. But the thing of it is, we couldn't play it. And I think it was 3 or 4 days. It was kind of like torture. The album opened up. First time a Beatles album ever opened up like that. And so all we could do for a couple days is just stare at this thing. And that's what we did. And I remember reading all the lyrics. I put on my reading glasses, to Lucy in the Sky. This is just 3 or 4 years before they were singing She Loves You, Yeah, Yeah, Yeah. Well, now they were singing Picture yourself on a train in a station with plasticine porters with looking glass ties. Suddenly someone is there at the turnstile, the girl with kaleidoscope eyes. I remember reading that and saying to Jim, I'm like, what does this even mean? And Jim said, I'll never forget this, because he said to me, I don't know. He said they've been taking that LSD drug, I read, and that's why they grew these mustaches, and the music is supposed to be really different. And I said to him, I'm like, boy, I'd like to try that LSD. He said, yeah, I would too. He said, a couple of years from now, we'll figure out how to get some and we'll try it. And we did. So that could be a whole nother batch of stories. But anyway, so all we could do is stare at this album. And then I remember like driving home was a long time because we were just staring at it. It was a 2-day trip. We drove halfway, stopped somewhere, drove again. And I remember like getting home to Louisville, Kentucky, running in the house, putting the album on, and just listening to it. And I wonder, like, if kids today, maybe they do. I mean, I'm an old man, so I always think, oh, the kids these days. But they don't really have like periods of anticipation like we did back then. Like we had to wait all that time. And even if we would have been home in that, you still got to go to the store. You got to get it. You got to go home and play it. And you knew that it was coming out. Now it's just something, pops on YouTube. It's on playlists, Spotify. But anyway, I will never forget putting the needle on the record and listening to Sergeant Pepper for the first time. Then we played it over and over and over. So that's always a nice memory. It was Jim's birthday present. Happy birthday, Jim. And that's today's story. Once again, thanks for tuning in to MAM-O GRAM, the Marty After Midnight program, courtesy of the Midwest Slice of Life. Hope you're having a good Monday. Hope it's not too painful for you. And we'll see you tomorrow with another story or something. All right, thanks.